Welcome to Leadership Comes Alive, brought to you by LeaderShape Global. This is the show that will help you develop transpersonal leadership skills that improve business relationships and results. Learn to lead beyond the ego and bring about better performing, sustainable organizations. Accelerated learning in a virtual environment will make sure your leadership comes alive. Hello everyone and welcome to Leadership Comes Alive. I'm here with Danielle Grant, John Knights, and Greg Young from LeaderShape Global, and we're here talking about Leadership Comes Alive. What is Leadership Comes Alive? What will it cover? And what can you expect from upcoming episodes? So let's get right into it. And Danielle, maybe I can start with you. Why did you folks at LeaderShape Global start Leadership Comes Alive?
We have a philosophy that nobody grows or learns anything unless they are interested, excited, and connected emotionally. So for us, if you want to be a great leader, and that's increasingly important in times of uncertainty, then you have to have the enthusiasm and the energy and the desire to do so. And we've used the acronym ALIVE for accelerated learning in a virtual environment. And we all seem to be living in a virtual world these days, and that's a trend that's likely to stay, at least to some extent. So we want leaders to be able to inject liveliness and enthusiasm and learn themselves through this podcast.
Now, Greg, this sounds great. Can you tell us a little bit more about what topics the show will cover and what can listeners expect?
I think that the topics are going to be varied but relevant, but importantly in keeping with our core philosophy and values. So we're going to be looking at case studies and examples based on personal experience, some personal stories, some practical tips, latest thinking, and that's going to come from us, and we're going to bring in guests occasionally as well. And we're going to be looking at areas something that Danielle just mentioned. We're working in a very much more of a virtual world right now. We've been a virtual organization since 2003 when we were born. And we've built up a huge amount of knowledge and experience of what works, what doesn't work. So we're going to be sharing some thoughts about how to lead successfully in a virtual environment. We're also going to look at the role of ethics in leadership, which is, I think, an important topic right now, and how to develop ethical leaders and, based on working with organizations. And then we might look at the growing body of evidence that gender balanced organizations perform better. So we might be answering that question, why do they perform better, and how to build a more gender balanced organization. We might also look at the role of leadership in systems and stop thinking about organizations in that reductionist way of machines and thinking about them as more like complex adaptive systems. So I think that just gives a flavor of the sorts of areas that we might cover.
Now, John, leading in a virtual environment, ethics, gender balance, leading in systems, these are all important topics today. Why do you feel that Leadership Comes Alive will be an important podcast for folks to listen to?
Well, I think we're at a tipping point, aren't we? And I guess COVID-19 has just exaggerated that. We can look around the world where we've got populist leadership. We can look around the world where big corporations are being either criticized or fined. And there's a feeling that we need a new way of doing things in the future. And what we want to inspire people to do, people who want to be leaders, and we see everybody as a leader, whatever position they're in. Every time you make a decision, you're taking a leadership action. And I think what we want to do is to inspire people to look at how they can rewire their own brains proactively to improve their behaviors and bring their values to full consciousness.
We're here talking about the new podcast, Leadership Comes Alive, with Danielle Grant, John Knights, and Greg Young from LeaderShape Global. You can find the show everywhere fine podcasts are found, or find out more at leadershapeglobal.com. Now, Danielle, tell us a little bit more about LeaderShape Global. What is LeaderShape Global? What do you do? And what should listeners understand about the organization?
LeaderShape Global was born in 2003, and it was born from a situation where the founders, which was John, Greg, and somebody who's unfortunately no longer with us, Chris Gulliver, had been corporate leaders and in very sort of well-known and large organizations. And they got to the point of saying, well, I've learned all this stuff the hard way, and how can we help others gain the benefit of hindsight without the pain of experience? So we come at it, and myself included, as former corporate leaders to chief exec level, very much on a global basis. And we started working with a variety of organizations and helping get those shortcuts to better leadership. And we've done that in a remote fashion increasingly over the last 15 years. And we've now got to the point where we have partners in 5 continents around the globe, which we're very proud of, and none of which we've gone out looking for. They've all found us and been attracted by our philosophy, by the idea that you can work in a more congruent, values-led way and have a sustainably successful organization. And by that I mean one that counts its success in growth, but not growth at any cost, growth in an ethical way, but that can carry on year after year and attract new customers and better staff because it works in a way that is congruent.
That's LeaderShape Global. You can find out more at leadershapeglobal.com. Now, we're almost out of time, but before I let you go, Danielle, John, and Greg, just one more question, and I'll open it up to all of you. What's one thing that listeners will not get by listening to Leadership Comes Alive?
So why don't I go first? The thing is that we've got a really clear purpose. What we want to do is we want to create a movement, reaching as many people around the world as we can, to develop what we call transpersonal leaders. And these people embrace the disruptors of the 21st century by thinking radically while being ethical and authentic. And these people operate beyond the ego. So we believe this will result in better performing, sustainable organizations that are more caring, productive, and exciting places to be. Added up, this is going to have a positive impact on the world in which we live. So we're going to be focusing on forward-looking leadership. So we're not going to be looking at a lot of theory. We're going to be looking at a lot of practical tips. We're going to be looking at a lot of things that are based on our personal experience. So if you want a lot of theory, I think you need to go elsewhere. What we will do is we'll put in place some sense-making framework.
John, what will listeners not get?
What we won't get is a focus on the what. I think many people, many leaders know the what. They know what needs to be done, really. The problem that we all come up with is how do we do that? And so we will very much focus on the how and the why rather than the what.
And Danielle, your last thoughts?
I sincerely hope they won't get bored or think this is the same as everything else. I believe that they'll get a fresh experience, a fresh perspective. They will look at themselves and the world and their organization in a way that is inspiring. So the one thing I don't think they'll get is bored or thinking this is just more of the same old, same old.
That's Danielle Grant, John Knights, and Greg Young from LeaderShape Global. We've been talking about the new podcast, Leadership Comes Alive. Check it out. You can find it everywhere fine podcasts are found, or find out more at leadershapeglobal.com. And subscribe, won't you? That way you'll never miss an episode. This has been Leadership Comes Alive. For Danielle Grant, John Knights, and Greg Young, we'll see you next time. You have been listening to Leadership Comes Alive, brought to you by LeaderShape Global. Join us next time as we continue to explore transpersonal leadership skills that bring about better performing, sustainable organizations. We'll talk with you next time on Leadership Comes Alive. Visit leadershapeglobal.com.